Hello, I welcome you all in the lecture series of memory. Today, we will extend our lecture on semantic and lexical memory. In previous lecture, we discussed about the hierarchical network model, the association network activation and semantic priming. In this lecture, we are going to understand the nature of priming and even the information and following the lexical processes may sometimes be tricky and confusing and might result it into a different outcome. So, in this experiment Bartlett 1932 did a very simple study which was done via telephone game. In a telephone game there are few individuals sit in a circle and then they just pass one information to the other. So, this is a group of friends who are sitting here together and then they just pass an information to the other. So, Bartlett did a very simple study. He just asked one student to play a music and to another student he said that just read a Native American folklore story was given to this student. After the story was being given to this student, he was being asked to transfer this or share this story with the another kid. The another student was being then instructed to share with the another student, then the another student, and this process continued on and on till the final student. The final student was being then asked to recall the story. So, one student read the story derived from the Native American folklore and moved further down the line. Sometimes after hearing the story, a student was asked to tell another student the story, who then had to tell the story to another person. So, it moved on and on and on. After several such retellings, the final student has to write down, not only so recalling of the story, then this recalling of the story he has to write down on the sheet of paper. What he found that there were certain changes which participant made in the original story. So, the original Native American folklore was being changed into some other form, and this change in the form of the story from the original were more consistent with the schema for the British culture. So, this reflected, Bartlett understood that the change in the story, the transformation in the story which has happened in the Native American story is because of the schema of these British college students. These British college students have had certain notions, had certain understanding about the world in their context. As a result, they started to replace the items, replace the attributes of the story with the British culture schema. And such transition, such transformation can be expected, and that is why Bartlett suggested that this reconstruction of the event is happening because of their schema. The same experiment, telephone game, can be done in our culture as well, in our society as well, and we may expect the similar change. In the Native American story, we may find our Rajputs and our great warriors being placed in. So, such is an integration which is happening is because of the schema. Such change was being addressed in the several forms, and Bartlett's finding laid the foundation to understand that how these mental lexicon playing a role in our understanding. So, the question arises, this mental dictionary which we discussed earlier, the mental repository which we are having, how large this could be. And as I said earlier, from context to context, from individual to individual, this mental dictionary may vary. So, we usually 3 to 4 words per second we produce, and in order to speak we must be able to do the following task. We had to rapidly access our lexical memory, and this lexical memory should be readily available to us. And how this lexical memory will be readily available to us is when the working memory is having connection to the long term memory, so that the information which is stored here we can directly pass into this working memory. And when the lexical memory retrieves or requires an information, when we need a word, larger the working memory is, larger would be the capacity of lexical memory, and larger the working memory capacity is there, rapidly access of lexical work, changing, transformation, exchange can happen. We can rapidly choose the right and correct word. The approximate right selection of the right word is 1 lakh. 1 lakh, approximately 1 lakh word is there in our mental dictionary, here in our long term memory, approximately 1 lakh words are there. How these 1 lakh words are residing in our mental lexicon? Through association, through hierarchical network model, which we discussed earlier in detail. So, when we are storing the information, we are storing the information in association, and that is why previously also we discussed that the pharmacological method or high intensity ECT method resulting into amnesia, because they are firing these networks, they are inhibiting these networks, and if any one node is affected, then the network or the nodes associated with this particular node will also be gone. So, this access of 1 lakh word depends on the rehearsal, retrieval, encoding, storage, and upon the association. Now, representation is space that stores our basic knowledge of the grammar rules of our language, syntax rule. In this representation of a space, if the grammar rules are being followed, people have basic knowledge. But if the non-grammar rules are there, then this representation is space may not register information. So, when we are talking about the information storage related to grammar rule, this representation is space give us an insight. Now, let us talk about some more ideas. Now, when we talk about the language entities, when we talk about the language entities, then lexical and non-lexical both comes. And when we are talking about the lexical and non-lexical, then we have to understand the smallest meaningful sound is phoneme, the smallest meaningful word is morpheme, the smallest meaningful graphical representation is grapheme, and this grapheme also indicate and give us lot of insight. The moment I draw this graphical representation, or the moment I draw a graphical representation like this, so this does not require a lexical root, this does not require a grammar rule. Without grammar we can do, and that is why I recommend you to also see the dual root cascade model. Dual root cascade model teach us about the lexical pathway and non-lexical pathway. This understanding of lexical and non-lexical pathway is, in certain instances we need the grammar rule to understand the information, but in many cases we do not need the grammar rule to understand the scenario. It could be quick, it could be rapid, it could be simple. When you see a snake, we understand its threat, we run. We do not stand and discuss about the grammar rule and principle. That is a representation we have learned. So, most models of lexical memory focus on 3 levels of representation. As we have been talking about the representational space, and this representational space is giving an aid to, and considering the grammar principle or grammar rule. Here are the 3 representation: meaning, morpheme, what is the meaning of it, syntax, grammar rule, lexical root, lexical processes, phonological, phoneme, but phoneme also meaningful sound, ma, ka, ba, tha, ta, ta. And then when we talk about such thing, we say that our semantic memory system is having a meaningful information which carries and relating concepts and idea about one association to the another. So, if you see here, we are having a strawberry on a plate. This strawberry on a plate is sweet and it is a fruit. This is the association. This fruit, what is this fruit? This fruit is a strawberry. And then what is, if we split the sound to this strawberry into 2 different words, it is a noun, both are noun and both are singular. It could be straws or it could be berries, then it would be plural, and it could have been straw berries, just like a strawberry, singular form. So, what is happening here? We are having an association. This is the conceptual level, concept we are having about a fruit, and then we are trying to look at the lexical root, the grammar rule, the grammar principle, lemma, which is saying hypothetical entity containing only semantic and syntactical information, meaningful information, what is this object and the grammar rule. Then lexeme, the knowledge or the representation about the word itself, the sound, straw, berry. So, this is how the language is trying to assist the lexical memory, and this lexical memory is actually a form of semantic memory. So, a semantic memory where we are talking about the meaningful information is there, knowledge of the word is there. This lexical memory is talking about the grammar rule, grammar principle, grammar entities playing role in the formation of the memory. Now, let us discuss about the lexical retrieval process. The lexical retrieval process talks about the syntactical rule, grammatical rule, where the language is playing role assisting the memory to retrieve the information. So, if we are taking an example of what is the word, that means second to last item on any list, this sentence itself is providing us a cue and an information what that word could be. So, if we have to identify a word just by reading this sentence, then we have to first parse the sentence into 2 halves. First part should be second to last item. Second to last item on what? On any list. So, this is very generic term, which means a generic word would be there. So, first we come to the semantic level, such as towards the end, part towards the end of what? Part of the list. So, providing meaning to this information give us an insight what that word or what that context could be, and as a result the retrieval process gets aided with the help of the semantic information. Now the retrieval of the lemma, which is talking about the which is the entity of semantic and syntactical information, it is suggesting that grammatically which word is going to fit here, meaningfully which word is going to fit here. Syntax is the rules of grammar. The word can be noun, pronoun, adjective, adverb, and etc. So moving from lemma, we move to lexeme, the sound of the word, and the sound of the word has what is the nature of the sound, what is the meaningful sound in that particular word. So when we are looking for a word which is talking about toward the end and part of the list, the word comes to our mind is penultimate. The same lexical retrieval can also be referred or considered with and can be understood with an example such as a black striped animal, a black striped animal which is carnivore. So then we have to look into the animal who are having the black stripes. Now we have zebra which is having a black stripe, we have a tiger who is having a black stripe, but we know that between the two, one is herbivore and another is carnivore. So when we are talking about the semanticity, syntax, retrieval of lexeme, then an effort is required to pronounce a sound also, like penultimate, tiger. So this brings us the phonological entry, where phonological entry is sent to the motor system so that the answer can be articulated. Production of speech, production of word can occur. So this lexical retrieval process seems to be helpful with the memory in the memory process. Now we have seen that the frequency, familiarity and dominance may be helpful in such scenarios. Moving from lexical retrieval process, while retrieving the information, there is an error also occurs. So the error occurs because of word exchange or sound substitution. So how the word is exchanging, which is resulting into an error. So when we talk about the sandals, instead of saying sandals, we say heels. Where are your heels? Now this word exchange error, what happened is that we have exchanged the word. Instead of using sandal, we are using the word heels. Similar meaning for another word. Another aspect, another example is, could be like water, pani, agua, Wasser, all are different words in different languages. So while making a speech, an individual can make such error regardless of how the word is sounding, because here we are talking about the meaning. So sandal is being replaced with heel. Another such word exchange error can be seen in multilinguals quite often, because they have more their mental dictionary, their repository is bigger than the normal individuals. Another is the sound substitution. Sound substitution when a similar but incorrect phonological structure is retrieved. So the word which is retrieved has no connection to the desired word. So, we see the tiger and we have to produce tiger, target is tiger, but what we do, we produce tirade. The same production sound substitution can be seen as hit and hot. The sound substitution is happening. So, speech error could happen because of these two reasons. Let me summarize you what we have studied. Reconstruction of events. Reconstruction of events, Bartlett's 1932 simple experiment gave us an insight that the schema from the cultural aspect, schema from the cultural context plays a major role. The storytelling task from one person to another person changes due course of time. The reconstruction of the event seems to be manipulated, seems to be changed, transformed because of the schema from different culture. Another thing what we have learned in this lecture is the access to the lexical memory. How can we access the lexical memory? With easiness and with difficulty. We have understood that the lexical memory requires a support from semantic memory. One more thing we have to understand, semantic memory is the knowledge of the word. So, it is a big repository. However, lexical memory is following a lexical route, lexical access, lexical processes. So, the consolidation of information or experience related to lexical information will be limited, and this lexical memory could be a subset of the semantic memory. We even tried to understand the role of language and lexical memory. They are interlinked. The rules which are applied in language, grammar rules, are helpful in lexical memory, and that is why when the researchers are working in the lexical memory area, they have to ensure several aspects: the novelty of the word, familiarity, frequency, dominance, emotional word, negative word, positive word. We know that in some contexts negative words have a better retrieval than the positive words. In another context, positive words seems to have a better retrieval than the negative words. Lexical retrieval process suggests us the role of lexeme, the role of lemma, and how they assist an individual in the retrieval process. When we are trying to retrieve a word, when the task and the goal is to retrieve a word, a tiger or penultimate, then how lexical route, lexical access is trying an aid in such retrieval. That is what we studied, and in the end we studied the speech errors, the errors which are happening due to speech processes. First thing, word exchange error, where the words are being exchanged. Instead of sandals, I said heel. And the similar example is that in a house, when while calling our if you are having an elder sister and younger sister, while calling your elder sister, you make word exchange error and you call your younger sister. And in another aspect is the sound substitution, where we were talking about the tiger, but the production is tirade. Let us end this section here, and in the next section we are going to start with forgetting. Thank you.